And yeah, good day, good morning to our friends from Latin America and USA, and good afternoon to people here in Europe and in this time zone. Today is the second in the series of, the last one, the validation workshop. And the goal of the validation workshop should be to validate technical guidelines. But without taking more time, maybe I could invite Ken, but since we should not be so formal, we are just with one NCPC now, and I see EPA and I see also walkout in council. And please, Ken, say a few words. Thank you.
Thanks, Branko. I'll turn on my computer, my camera for a moment here. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I think that this is going to be a very useful meeting. I know some of these last-minute issues with Colombia and Peru are unpredictable and uncontrollable, so we'll just do the best we can, and those things happen sometimes. I hope our colleagues from Peru are okay and can join. We had a great workshop yesterday, and I think we can do the same thing today. Personally, I learned a lot about not just the updates to the draft guidance, but about all the work that the centers, as well as IPEN, had been doing in the countries in Africa and Asia. And we also had a great discussion about where we take these guidelines, how we share them, and get them to the people who need them. So I'm looking forward to that same type of discussion today. And thank you very much to Branko and Vojka for all their work, not just on putting these webinars together, but on the whole process and output of SME support and reformulation guidelines. So I'll turn it back over to you, Branko, and we can start the session. Welcome again, everyone.
Thank you, Ken. As I said before, today we should take stock, and we should reflect on what we did, and then we can discuss what we are going to do in the future. We divided the workshops in two in order to accommodate different time zones. It would be difficult to do it in one day, but now it seems that we are going to be more relaxed with time. But still, I would invite presenters to stick to 15 minutes of time, if it's okay. And also, it would be good to maybe you can turn on your camera right now so we have a picture of everybody for a moment. Yeah, it will be in the recording, so you can. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Nice to talk to you. And now you can keep your camera on, but I think in order to save bandwidth, we should just invite the presenters to keep their camera on. And now I'd like to invite Vojka to present us the latest news about technical guidelines. Vojka, the floor is yours.
Good. Good morning and good afternoon to all of you. About comments and feedbacks, there were not so many comments or feedbacks. The first one, and I think the most, maybe the most important, was from Nexus Indonesia, and they asked for additional information about the lead exposure's impact on workers' health and also other populations, not only children. I think it is good to add to our guidelines. Also, methodology used for paint sampling testing and analysis. They also would like to add to the guidelines equipment needed for a certified lead analysis laboratory. They also have one request to include other names for pigment yellow 34 or pigment red 104, as Indonesian paint manufacturers are not familiar with these terms. About this first request about additional information about lead impact on workers and health and other population, this picture was added, and also reference to several sentences were written, and also reference to global elimination of lead paints, why and how countries should take action. That is World Health Organization's document, and a reference to it was given. About methodology used, I think it is also very useful to have it in guidelines. We added one more appendix, selected list of ISO standards for general test methods for paints and varnishes. We are not talking about varnishes in our guidelines, but test methods are the same in some cases. And it seems like this ISO number and name of the standard. In this case, it is examination and preparation of test samples, and very short description about content of standard was also given. About equipment needed for certified lead analysis laboratory, these guidelines are not about this, but also link to the World Health Organization's document, brief guide to analytical methods for measuring lead in paint was added. Nothing was described, but just this link was given. About request to include other names for pigment yellow 34 and pigment red 104, it is really not technically, let me say, justified because we cannot really change it, because these color numbers, color index, sorry, we have color index names and color index numbers. We are talking in this case about color index names, and explanation about color index names and the numbers are given or was given in one of the sections, and the color index is the universally accepted standard coding system for pigments, so it stayed like it was. But they can find in tables chemical formula and cast numbers for lead pigments, but not only for lead pigments, also for all alternative pigments given in these guidelines. So, in short, we cannot change pigment color indexes. The most maybe the biggest change in the guidelines are because of DCC. The company does not want to share information about their testing related to alternative pigments. We used their application for each authorization, and it is really very good document. And there were some explanation about pigments, but also about colors and everything. But as they did not want to share this information, we decided to change it. Our previous goal, of course, it is the goal now, but we cannot illustrate as good as we did before. But the goal was to provide complete, most comprehensive information in the document. But we also gave all links to other documents, so if one would like to find out more about topic, it is possible because of these links. how it looks like now. We don't have this color comparison. I think it was really nice to have it, but we don't anymore. And also the tables are a bit changed, not too much, but the most important information are given for all pigment alternatives, not only for alternatives, for light pigment as well. So about function, about technical feasibility, environmental and human health hazards, economic feasibility and availability. We also have one feedback from Colombia, PPG Colombia, put us the question, do you consider it necessary or desirable to encourage the development of reformulation guidelines for waterborne paints? Our reply was that it is not necessary. We don't think it is necessary because all general principles related to solvent-based paints are the same for waterborne paints. The main problem, not problem, but the main difference is that water surface tension is higher than solvent, so we have different approach to dispersion, mixing and dispersion, and we have different approach to dispersing agent, but generally principles are the same, so we don't think it is necessary to have special guidelines for waterborne paints. And I always like to say it is like that. These guidelines are really general because it is not possible, or if it is possible, we need many guidelines to prepare guidelines for all kinds of paints. For example, automotive paints or road marking paints or waterborne and so on. So thank you. That was all. We have positive feedbacks from suppliers, but it was not written, just said. And that would be all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vojka, for this presentation. And now I open the floor for any questions to Vojka. You can just speak or you can raise your hand. But don't worry, you will have also opportunity, or you can use, you can type your question in the chat. Okay, I see Angela. Please, floor is yours.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Vojka, for that. That was really, really helpful to see what the comments were and how you addressed them. And so I'm assuming these are all the comments that were received from every region.
Yes.
So
you
have everything. Okay. And then when the final version is prepared, the final draft, I assume that those who did kind of voluntary translations will make whatever needed changes so that all the language versions are the same.
Yeah, I can maybe answer to that. In fact, I cannot. Means we don't have the budget for this translation. So as you said, it was voluntary. What we can do and what we will do, we can mark what has been changed in the guidelines. It's I don't know, Vojka, you correct me, but it's not very
I will try.
Sorry?
I will try. I'm not sure anymore, but I will do that. I will try to do that.
Yeah, but 80–90% of the guidelines are the same, even
Yes.
more.
Yes.
Yeah, so if there is something to change, it's just to you can mark it in yellow highlight for people to see.
Or you can do it in track changes or something so that it's clear where the changes are, and the translations don't have to be changed much. It's just a few words here and there, it sounds like.
It's late now because I already did it, but okay. I will do it in red letters or something. Yeah.
If it's two Word documents, we can also use the compare function in Microsoft Word to see where it's changed. So that shouldn't be a problem.
That would be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
The best solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions?
Regarding translation, I asked our colleagues yesterday to present these guidelines to someone who from paint industry to check terms, because our language in paint industry is specific. So there were some comments in Jordan regarding translation. So please do that if it is possible in Spanish. Thank you.
Yeah, the biggest change is this concern with the I don't know, it's few pages about DCC, this pigment yellow, if I'm not pigment yellow
Yes, and
34.
ISO standards and also
ISO.
action, and there are several.
Okay. Yeah, so as Ken said, you can try to do this compare version, because I'm aware that you did not use the track changes version in the new guidelines, but we will try to see what exactly changed. It is possible still with compare versions in Word. And Nicolene was asking in the chat, but I just want to verify. The case studies will be in the form of annex, Vojka?
Yes.
Good.
One of annexes is about case studies, yes.
Very good. Good. Thank you very much for consolidating those comments. And I think that after the comments and feedback, the document will be much better. And I understand completely that we didn't want to enter into testing, etc., since the document is already loaded with a lot of information. And if we go to testing, that's completely another area. And I agree with you to give useful links for people to find the testing. And now I would like to move to our first presenter today, to Ecuador, if it's okay. So Miriam, you or somebody from your team should now share the screen and tell us what is the latest situation regarding lead paint in Ecuador in next 15 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Branko. Oh.
Yeah, we see it.
Yeah, that's okay?
It. That's okay. Perfect.
Yeah. First, I would like to thanks so much to Vojka to help and give the orientation to do the test, and to my colleagues, Maria Fernanda and Ana, that contributes a lot to do this all this work. I'm going to present the results, and Anna, be free to help me in the presentation. About the feedback on the guidelines, we share to 6 companies and 1 supplier, and we ask and we comment the guidelines, and they don't say any comments. Only 1 supplier send the comment, and we comment with Vojka. About the pilot test, I think it's possible to include, Vojka, you already explained, but that's not possible to include all different guidelines to different types of paints, but we would like to express our problem. For us, it could be good to include pigments for replacement in the case that no grinding process that have the industries, for example, pigment pastes. Another is update the list of suppliers for Latin America. Incorporate examples of pigments reformulation of Latin American suppliers. And include lead-free pigment paste information for reformulation process. The main in our case, the main problem was two companies don't have grinding process, and they and we need to do this in another companies, and it could be for us could be better to give some guidelines about the past and the pigment pasts. This is the main idea. About the reformulation in Ecuador, we choose 4 companies. The companies decide to be anonymous. For this reason, we put LIP 1, LIP 2, LIP 3, and LIP 4. In 3 cases, we are in the stage 7. It means that we finish the test reformulation test, and only one we continue to waiting to the pigment. In the one case, the LIP 1 choose alkyd modified enamel for taxi repaint. It's used to automotive. They produce 13.1 tons per year. The pigment is medium chrome yellow, and the tones used is 0.882 tons per year. In the 3 cases that we finished, we choose traffic marking paint. This used to signal marking. The volume of the produce is 196 tons per year, and the raw material was medium chrome yellow, and used 17 tons per year. The 4 company, the paint was alkyd enamel. Is used in the domestic use. The volume is 1.4 tons per year. The raw material is medium chrome yellow. The use is 0.29 tons per year. About the results, we present here the results to LIP 4. At the beginning, the paint contains a lot of lead and lead. Is 34,689 ppms, and with this reformulation, reduced to less than 56 ppms. The specifications are so similar, and the industry is the owner is agree with this change, and we do a video that they express the experience. About the drivers and barriers, the drivers have a legal document in approval process is important. This process began 2 years ago, and the industries know that they need to change. The existence of global regulation related to the reduce of lead contents in paints accepted by our neighborhoods already, neighbor countries by Colombia and Peru. They already have a laws that's very, very important. The interest of companies for scheduling meetings with the new suppliers with cheaper alternative pigments, that was the first idea. And they understand the effects that lead can cause on human health and environment. The barriers, not all companies have testing or research laboratory for the development of quality analysis on or reformulations. Not all SMEs have a grinding process for manufacturing their paints. I already said this. A few national suppliers have lead-free alternative pigment paste. They usually have only powered pigments, and it was a problem with 2 companies. I already said this. There is only one accredited laboratory in the country to quantify lead content in paint. It's a problem here. The paint industry said that how they need to wait a lot of time to get a result. And in this project, we use the services of this laboratory, and yes, and we need to wait about 1 month because it's have a lot of work. There is only one authority to control the quality of all products marketed in the country with limited technical resources. So control in the paint sector is not as expected. In relation with the economic evaluation of reformulated paints, we refer to LEAD 4. The price of pigment with the lead pigment is 5.76 US dollars per kilogram, and the alternative pigment without lead is $21.83 per kilogram. And finally, the price of paint is the price was 6.92 US dollars per kilogram, and with the alternative pigment was 9.84 US dollars per kilogram. It's 42.2% more expensive. About lesson learning and best practices, it's important to strengthen the commitment of the lead-free pigments and other heavy metal manufacturing industry to participate in this type of project. Second is technical capacity for research and reformulation of paints in SMEs is limited. Production and laboratory conducted an initial meeting between the alternative pigment suppliers and manufacturers is important to get detailed reformulation to the reformulation process. The lead-free pigments available in the country are high cost, which increase the price of pigments. But I think that's a general, in general, the cost is more. There is no approved regulation in the country to commit the paint industry to migrate to free lead content paint. And about the influence of lead paint laws in reformulation, we put here the way to do to review our regulation. But in general, I could see that Ecuador began the discussion of technical standards on lead content 2 years ago and decided to continue with this process as part of this project. For these standards to be mandatory, these must be issued as a part of technical regulation. In several meetings with the production, health, and environmental authorities, the decision was to support this process. Unfortunately, with the onset of the pandemic, Ecuador had to prioritize the insurance of another regulation related to health standards, and the paint regulation went into the background. The approval of the laws by Colombia and Peru are a very strong input to take up the issue in Ecuador, and this generates a strong influence on producers to change their formulation with lead-free pigments, because we import a lot, import and export. Imports mainly paints from the two countries. About the conclusions, ends with the production, environmental and health authorities to obtain approval of technical regulation is the RTE INEN 061 paint, which include the limit of lead contents of different types of paint. We already have one meeting with the Vice Ministry and continue to push this process. Establish agreements of regulation that define responsible environmental management for safe handling of batches of high lead paint that are still on the market in our country and in Colombia, in our neighbor countries, Colombia and Peru. Encourage that lead-free paint companies carry out awareness-raising activities at level of distributors and customers, such as hardware shops, building chambers, among others, in order to understand the importance of migrate and consuming heavy metal-free paints. It's also recommended for these activities the participation of the Ministries of Environment, Health and Production. Another, promote a global network with the countries participating in the project, in which progress can be reported and the elimination of bleeding paints. Besides, it will serve as an input for awareness-raising activities in the international lead poison prevention week that it could be continued.
2 minutes.
Oh. Promote the accreditation of more laboratories in the country and work with the construction sector to include the ban of the use of heavy metal paints, the coefficient building regulation that we have. And to finish, I would like to present.
El SER es una corporación sin fines de lucro creada por gremios empresariales ecuatorianos comprometida con el desarrollo industrial sostenible. Por eso nos hemos sumado a la iniciativa mundial promovida por ONU Medio Ambiente y la OMS para eliminar de forma gradual el contenido de plomo en pinturas. En el Ecuador, para el desarrollo de las pruebas piloto de reformulación de productos, se encuentran participando 4 empresas. A continuación, el testimonio de una de ellas.
Muy buenas tardes. Pincolor nace en 1998, tiene una trayectoria de 23 años. Nos dedicamos a lo que es pinturas arquitectónicas, esmaltes alquílicos y comercialización de productos afines. Estamos a nivel nacional, distribuimos para todas las provincias.
¿Por qué decidieron participar en el proyecto Pinturas Libres de Plomo?
Nosotros en 1995 ya teníamos un antecedente de lo que iba a venir esta norma. Entonces, viendo que nos ofrecían nuevos productos, decidimos participar para poder comprobar de que sí podemos reemplazar los metales pesados en las pinturas.
¿Qué dificultades y aspectos positivos se dieron en el proceso de reformulación de la pintura?
Los aspectos positivos fueron principalmente que comprobamos que sí podemos trabajar con nuevos productos, aunque la dificultad que no nos llegó todos los productos que hubiésemos querido para poder probar las nuevas formulaciones y así poder trabajar y presentar los nuevos ensayos.
En el caso de darse una segunda etapa del proyecto, ¿qué recomendaciones daría usted para continuar en el mismo?
El objetivo principal sería reemplazar totalmente y contar con los pigmentos que ya tengamos aquí en el Ecuador. No esperar a que nos manden de otras partes para poder trabajar y esperar. Nos corta tiempo también, hemos tenido el impedimento ese principal. Y otra que sería los pigmentos orgánicos que ya vienen en pastas. Entonces nos facilitaría totalmente la molienda, ya no tendríamos que estar dispersando.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Branko.
you, Miriam. The video is really brilliant, and this is that we need more of this. Thank you very much for a great presentation. And now I open the floor for questions. Any questions for Miriam? Yes, Angela.
Hi, Miriam. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Angela.
In a few years.
Yeah, many years.
Thank you for this presentation. This was excellent and very clear. I just wanted to make sure I understood completely. I think you noted in your lesson learned section that one of the things you saw was that the fact that the government of Ecuador was working on a technical standard was something that helped drive the reformulation demonstrations. Is that correct?
In the lesson learned, you said,
Was it helpful that Ecuador was working on a technical regulation and that the paint companies knew they had to eventually reformulate? Was that what helped them take action?
yes, yeah, I said, yeah, yes, it's I think it's very, very important for the companies because they know that they not only not need, they have to change. They have to change with the regulation. We import a lot of paint from Colombia and Peru, and the laws in this case is a signal, is obligate the companies, I think, to change.
Yeah.
And they export a few amount of paint, and then it need to change because these two countries don't accept. Yeah, and I think in this case, I think the authorities are going to put more priority to approve the regulation, and the is use. So I think the message is so clear that the industries don't produce more paints using pigments with the lead.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, Voika?
I don't have question, but I would like to, I forgot to say that about suppliers. Yes, Miriam, we added, you asked and Colombia asked us to add Ferro, Matias, and I don't know that I think these companies are suppliers, your supporters, and we added it, and we have also acknowledgement and mentioned that companies in that. And about your, I don't know, one of the first slides we can discuss on our meeting on Monday or Tuesday. I suppose it is better than to do it now regarding pigment pastes and other questions from companies. Branko,
Yeah.
I suppose it is better.
Yeah.
You mean bilaterally?
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm not aware of any meeting having on Monday or Tuesday.
No, only two of us. Not two, I don't know how many, but that is very specific. So there is no need for anyone.
Thank you. Yes, Angela, is it you again? Yes.
Yes, it's. I forgot
not
to
a
ask.
legacy hand.
It's not a legacy, no. I forgot to ask one other question related to what I said before, which was, it seems like one of the barriers, and I think I've heard this in some of the other countries, is the lack of availability of the pigments in paste form. And also just the lack of availability that suppliers have locally in the countries. I'm thinking that technical regulation and also regulations in neighboring countries in Peru and Colombia will promote that the suppliers start to offer these types of pigments. Do you think that that would be the case, that the market might respond and that pigment suppliers might start to supply the pigments in paste form and also just lead-free pigments in general?
I think I don't know. It's possible to include in the regulation to that the suppliers begin to. It could be very good, but I don't know if it's possible to put it in laws, because
no, I don't mean that it's in the law, but I mean that because the companies now have to, if the law passes and they have to have a low level of lead, they are now going to be looking for pigments and compounds that are low in lead. So it's not in the law, but the law is a driver for the companies to want those products. And so I'm thinking both for the pigments, you know, the companies like Clariant locally or BASF locally would start to provide those things. And then what the same could be said maybe for lab capacity, that if there's a technical regulation, there might be an incentive for labs in Ecuador to start to offer that service.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the case? Yeah.
Yeah. And in this case, yeah, the laws is a driver, yes.
Yeah.
Because the companies are small and don't have in the process the grinding.
Yeah.
And the suppliers know that, and I think begin with the law, yeah, it's a driver, begin to sell this kind of past.
Thank you.
Boyka, I see your hand.
I'm thinking about to add something about this so-called universal paste of pigment. This kind of pastes are compatible with broad range on vehicles. I didn't write about them because I don't think it is, but I see it is important. I will add a few rows about that because I also someone from I think Colombia asked me how to grind pigment paste. So I think we should explain that because over grinding is also not good. I will, if you agree, I will add that. Maybe it would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Voika. For those who are not really familiar with the paint industry, it's a dispersion process. So if you want to use solid pigments, you need to have not a special but particular machine, which is called grinding mill. So you have a better dispersion. But if you don't have it, you have again a mill, but not so powerful. And then you add already pre-dispersed pigment in a liquid form. So that's what we learned. I see also a problem with on the market. I think, Voika, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the pigment dispersions are more expensive. For
Yes, yes.
they are much more expensive because their use is much more. It's better for the user. And the second thing is that that's also a barrier for SMEs. This is what we learned. SMEs do not have this equipment, and big companies, they have equipment. So for big companies, it's easier from the point of view of equipment to use solid alternatives. So they have another advantage. And I think that it will be really challenging for suppliers to produce pigment dispersions for small quantities. That could be one barrier.
But no, they have universal pastes anyway. Those companies that produce it, that manufacture.
But I agree that we should add few lines about using dispersions instead of solid pigments.
I will do that. Sorry, but I thought
And
it was very clear, but not only to me, it seems.
if I may just, we are over the time for discussion, but it's especially I think it could be interesting for those who are working in legislation. We have so many questions. Why 90 ppm? And our answer was that it is technically feasible. And now you, from Miriam's excellent presentation and example, you see that without intentionally added lead, we have less than 56 ppms. So our assumption of 90 ppm that people can comply and companies can comply with model law is valid. So thank you, Miriam, for this really important detail that we can use in our discussion with the governments, and just, I mean, we knew that, but now we have measured this. And thank you for doing this testing after the reformulation, since we didn't require it, but you did it, and it proves that you reduced the content of lead from, if I remember, 34,000 ppms to less than 56. And it demonstrates without adding intentionally lead, you can comply with 90 ppm. And I think it's a big takeaway from your presentation. Thank you very much. And if you don't mind, I would like to invite Peru to present their case and the results. So Miriam, you just need to stop sharing. Thank you. Okay, Alejandro Marcos, nice to see you again, my friend.
How are you?
Excellent.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I am very happy to see you all, good friends. And I am very happy to see you, and I am happy to know that you are well and healthy and working hard. Thank you for the
Marcos,
invitation. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. No, please continue.
Okay, thank you. And yes, Marisa apologized. She's not coming. She's not working today, but she asked me to present the PowerPoint. So I will try to share with you the progress that in Peru, and then Alejandra is helping me. So Alejandra, please, could you put the next slide, please? Feedback for on the guidelines. The Ministry of Environment reviewed the guidelines, and they are quite comfortable with the guidelines, so they feel that this is okay. According with the SMEs that we've been working and sharing the guidelines, the regulation must be specific and clear. Yeah, we try to put this recommendation in the law that it was proposed. Traffic, industrial, and other kinds of paints must be included. Many, like traffic, no, many of which are not in direct contact with people, but they are involved in different process, and also this type of paints in this type of uses could provoke environmental pollution. The guidelines should include success stories and the data of cost per square meter or gallon is important. There should be incentive, financial and non-financial, for the manufacturers. We are working on that. This is a next initiative to give some sort of a recognition to the companies that are producing free lead in paint. And the certificate that verifies the low lead content in paint should be submitted by a regulated and independent laboratory. Hopefully, this is included in the law that, as I'm going to comment later, was recently approved by the Congress. We've been working with some small and medium-sized companies. So PRIN, they produce water-based companies for architectural uses, and it's the product that it was chosen is light blue Ecolatex, and the lead-containing raw materials is pigments. Also, another company is Envasadora San Gabriel. This is a traffic and primer paint used at industrial level, and the products chosen is yellow road marking paint and primer Clarkson chromate for automobiles. The lead containing is pigments and fillers. Also, we've been working with universal colors, as you know. The type of paint is epoxy for industrial uses. Is yellow, orange, and epoxy paint, and the material that contains lead are pigments. Also, we have working with LAC paint. Also, they choose epoxy for industrial uses. The product chosen is epoxy enamel yellow, and the lead containing is raw material pigments. Spring, I think it is the case that it is more advanced. We use there light blue Ecolatex, and they produce 21,000 liters per year. It's not a big company, but they have important clients. The idea is they of as any company, they want to have more participation in the market. The reformulation was before blue, and after a paste, a supra paste blue, in terms of pigment and in terms of viscosity. Before was this 109 Ku, and after 110 Ku. Other properties, stable in all of its physical properties and stable color. The shade comparison was this as shown in the picture before and after, and the current lead content is very low, it's 0.4 ppm. Drivers, the technical support of the technical committee was, I think it was important in this project. 14 institutions cooperated with the project in different aspects in terms of motivating the companies to produce free leading paint, and also they help us to produce the project, the law proposal, and until its approval. The one outcome of the project is that the Congress has approved the law by consensus. So it was interesting to know that all the members of the parliament will agree with the law, and nobody make any opposition. The cooperation with international and big companies like Chroma, which is in Peru, it was important. Also, the Chamber of Construction and the Chemical Committee of the Chamber of Construction, which has in its members the biggest companies on construction in Peru. The study market of the paint industries and the potential substitution of lead content in the paints was also something helpful. Suppliers of lead-free pigments willing to collaborate with the reformulation project and regional support also was helpful for us. Barriers, identification of providers of organic alternative pigment to lead and finding a local partner. The opportunity cost of the reformulation process, for example, adaptation process such as milling due to the use of paste or pigment preparation. When we are suffering a lot with COVID-19 restrictions, there was some delay on information, pigment shipment and paint samples, and also, this is happening all over the world. It's not the same working virtually or mostly virtually in the context of COVID-19. And maybe to consider the mother tongue, the Spanish. The economic evaluation of reformulated paints. Economic evaluation not yet available, but the Embajadora San Gabriel is developing the economic evaluation at the same time as the reformulation process is taking place. And Supreme did not present the economic evaluation, but we suggested to take it into consideration, so they are evaluating that issue. But now, in terms of the law, when it is active, the law, I think that they are going to make this economic evaluation to proceed with their new product, with a new free leading paint product. Lessons learned. Supreme reported that they achieved a better matching for the paint tone by substitution by changing the original pigment for an organic one. SMEs reported a good experience when working with organic pigments. They found some disadvantage, like long times during the milling stage, and concerns about properties like viscosity when trying pigments. As a result of this, one company worked with prepared pigments paste, and two are also waiting for the samples to test the paste performance with the paint. As I stated on the reformulation guidelines, active communication in the supply chain was the key to keep the project going, especially between the providers and the company. So the value chain is important to consider in this type of project and in this type of initiatives. This is some figures of the campaign that we started last year in order to motivate the Congress to approve the free lead paint. Here is the congresista, the member of the parliament that was leading that proposed the law to the General Congress. His name is Omar Merino. He's a good ally. He's a good partner of the project. So he launched the project, the law inside the Congress. And also we made a strong campaign on media, on TV, radio, and newspapers. So I think this was helpful for and this has created some awareness in the Peruvian society about lead in paint and also about lead in general. Conclusions. The reformulation of paint that contains lead can be done by selecting the right pigments to meet the desired characteristics. The SMEs that haven't finished with the reformulation will continue with the work until the objective is accomplished. We have some sort of a commitment with these companies that we are going to work, or we are going to follow their activities. Considering the recent approval of the law, we, of course, there will be more interest coming from the manufacturers in reformulating paints to meet the new regulations. During the development of the project, the technical guidelines were shared with the SMEs and national entities such as the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Environment, and the National Society of Industry. They are also now, they are very good and strong partners of this project. So I would like to acknowledge their participation and the contribution to the objective of having free lead in paint in Peru. The updated technical guidelines will also be shared with the key stakeholders to be considered in future projects and future works. Thank you very much. I apologize if my English is lazy today, but and this is the presentation. Thank you, Branco. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcos, for excellent presentation and good results. And now I'm opening the floor for the questions. Any questions for Marcos? I see Angela's hand.
Hello, Marcos. Nice to see you.
Hello, Angela.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Okay, taking care. Yes.
Good. I'm glad you're safe. Thank you for that presentation. That was very exciting to hear how much progress you've made. And I had a few questions about some of the details that were very interesting to me. It looks like for one of the paints, it was a water-based paint, Supreme.
Yes.
And they had been using lead compounds in water-based paint. So that's interesting to me. Perhaps you or Vojka or someone can tell us. We had assumed that perhaps water-based paints might not have high lead, but it looks like maybe sometimes that is the case. Is this a very specialized use, or do you think this might be common?
Yeah, it's I don't know if Vojka.
Yeah, Vojka can.
Maybe Vojka can answer, yes.
This is a very, very technical question, but Boyka, please, SOS, Mayday.
Sorry, Marcos, you can tell if you want, please.
No, if you have some inputs on this question, Boyka is very welcome.
Yes, it is possible. I saw your mail, Branko, but I didn't have enough time to reply. Water-based paints are not guaranteed that lead will be avoided in paints. For example, in Colombia and some other countries, we have architectural paints, PVA-based, polyvinyl acetate-based, that contains lead. So it is not guaranteed lead will be, how to say?
Not used.
Not used.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's important.
That was also, sorry.
Go ahead, no, sorry.
That was also a question from a lady from PPG from Colombia. She was wondering how is it possible that lead is present in water-based paints. That was very strange for her, but the fact is that it is present in water-based paints. Yes.
What kind of pigments are there, Boyka?
Lead pigments.
Which
Normal
type?
pigments.
The same
We
like
have
in
only
solvent?
we have only two lead pigments, not more than that. Except if we are talking about lead oxide, but of course it is for other kind of paints. And it BASF, Clariant, and other pigment producer, they also produce replacement for alternatives for lead pigments for water-based paints. Not only pigments, but also pigment preparations.
Okay.
I didn't answer to your mail, sorry, but now I am answering, yeah.
So I think this is maybe another important conclusion of the demonstrations, that there might be lead in water-based paint, because we do get this question periodically and we didn't know the answer. So maybe, I don't know if the guidelines would have something in there, or maybe we have another place to talk about lessons learned. I think this is an important one.
Unfortunately, Colombia is not with us, but they have one reformulation of PVA-based paint.
But this Soprene was, what was the, I mean, is it also ethyl vinyl acetate or what? Soprene, architectural dispersion. Marcos, what was the base?
Alejandra, do you have some? Alejandra is with us. Alejandra, you have some information about Soprene and lead pigments on the water-based paints?
Well, I know that they actually work with some kind of pigments that contain a little bit of lead. I believe that initial content was not so much over 90 ppm, and maybe that's the reason that we actually got to a very low lead concentration with reformulation now. But I'm not sure. Yes, and they actually work with pigments, like actual pigments in when they use milling in their processes. So maybe now they change, or they're in the process of changing to some kind of pigment preparation, which allow them to which actually have a lead, but less lead content in them. But I'm not sure what kind of pigments they were using exactly. Yes, I'm asking them for the technical sheet and the MSDS of their original pigment, so I can include it in the reformulation report.
Okay, so it sounds like the starting lead concentration might not have been very high, but the ending lead concentration is very low. I think you said 0.4 parts per million. So
yes,
so it does make a somewhat of a difference. Yeah,
it's the margin of error.
margin of error, exactly.
yes.
Yeah, the environmental.
So maybe they, okay. Any other questions for Marcos? For Peruvian team? Well, if not, thank you, Marcos, again. And I repeat again that we unfortunately don't have Colombia here with us due to really last minute changes in their team. but we are confident that the new project manager in Colombia will be back to us. And Marcos, since Grupo GEA signed a contract with Ecuador and with Colombia, I'm counting on your help to get back on track with Colombia.
Yep.
And
Yep.
we saw during our practice session 7 days ago that Natalia already prepared the presentation, and so we know that there are results. We have monthly reports from Colombia. It's only that she was not allowed to present it today, and nobody else was ready to do it. And I think it's unfortunate, but it's not. It doesn't mean that Colombia is out of the project. It's just a temporary hiccup, I would say. And using this opportunity, I would like you, Marcos, and Miriam, to share your excellent presentation with us, and also on behalf of Nicolene, to ask you don't have to answer it right now, but to ask you if it's okay that this presentation is shared on SciChem website. So you just think about that, and you just share with me in a couple of days your response. But anyway, send me the presentation, even if you don't want it to be shared on SciChem website. Thank you, Marcos.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, really. Okay, this concludes the presentation part, and I would like to now go to the last point in the agenda, and it is interactive discussion. And as yesterday, I'd like to invite Nicolene to take the floor and to moderate this interactive session. Please, Nicolene.
Hi, thank you, Branko. Thank you, everybody, and for the presentation. As you may recall, when we did the practice session, we will now be using Menti, this interactive platform. I will share my screen, and in the meantime, I would invite you to take your smartphone or to open a new page on your browser and to go on menti.com that you can see on the top of the slide and to put in the following codes. Through that, you'll be able to see the presentation. And the idea is, since we're still quite a number of people attending this call, to discuss after. First, I will put some question on one question on Menti, then we can reflect, exchange on it, and so on, and we will go through 5 questions together. Thank you. So let's start with the first one. The first one is a question on the thinking who would be the key stakeholder to be involved in disseminating the guideline. And this is a multiple choice question. So we would have the result showing on the screen with some percentage. Great, you're starting. You can put some of them. Oops, sorry. Okay. So thank you so much. We have already 7 answers. Please feel free to keep on answering when we start to discuss. And it's also quite interesting because we actually had the same question yesterday. So the first thing that strikes me is actually the one that is not being picked, others. Yesterday, some of our colleagues suggested also to add additional stakeholder that would be really important. But here, the stakeholder could be the IGO, sorry, the other UN agency, UNEP, UNIDO, also academia, and so on. But with the group today, we really look at the industry association mostly and the SMEs. It's also quite interesting that we would like to share the guidelines when they're finalized with the SMEs involved in the pilot test, and that the government official for 25% have still a key role to play. So I don't know if anybody else would like to comment. Yeah, Ken, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, it is interesting how this is similar to yesterday. One question that I have is, not that familiar with this industry is, I mean, I'm assuming that these small and medium enterprises are in many cases competing with each other. Is this maybe a barrier to sharing, these best practices and the guidelines? For example, if SME involved in the pilot test has a good formula and a good method, is that a competitive advantage for them that they might want to hold on to as long as possible? And if that's the case, maybe how would we counteract that?
That's a really good point. I see Branko and Wojciech just raise your hand. Is it to respond to Ken's question or?
Yes.
Yes, but Wojciech, go ahead.
Sorry, Branko, you can tell if you want.
No, Wojciech, you will do it better.
Okay. We in our report, in SME's report, there is no formulation, just results. So there is no fear of that some sensitive information will go out of SMEs, and that there will be there is competition, of course, but I think they can share that information with them without any problem.
Thank you. Angela, is there something that you would like to add on another comment on that question?
Yes. After I hit submit, I realized I had one for the other comment. And I do recall from yesterday, the other two that were mentioned, you might want to share with others what those were. But I wanted to add, considering maybe working through, I don't know if this makes sense now that I'm thinking about it. But anyway, there are groups that work to promote lab capacity, like LAC, or maybe there's other groups that can help if laboratories are interested in increasing their market, to know that there might be companies that will need to reformulate. So it's a thought. It might be too distant, but the others that were mentioned yesterday, I think, were academia and
IGOs, and Usam from Jordan mentioned especially CBOs, community-based organization. So, but no, I took note of the idea of a group involved in laboratory capacity. I mean, it might be too far out of reach, but it's the more we have channeled and different way to disseminate, I guess, the better it is to have this document out and being ready to be used.
The other thing on SMEs involved in circulating this, I would think that they just might not have the bandwidth to do something like this, which is wouldn't be their core business, unless they were very involved, maybe in an association but they might actually want to keep their market advantage, I could imagine. Or if they're part of an association, they might want to promote good practices across the industry. So, but I don't know that they would have the time to do this type of dissemination.
Okay. Yes, Branko, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to stress that it's obvious that we all think that industry association are the main driver for and the main channel to disseminate the guidelines, which is completely logical. It is in their DNA. They exchange knowledge with their members, and what we are sharing here is a knowledge. And that's why I think that most of the people feel that industry associations are the best channel to do it. Over.
Yeah, thank you for that point. Actually, when I was going to my note from the call yesterday, that was one driver that was really shared by 3 of the participating organizations yesterday as one of the plus that help them to achieve reach out to SMEs and have more like industry involvement behind that. So it's true that they're really central. Now, if it's okay with everybody, I would suggest that we go to the second question. And this question is, it's a word cloud. So please, you can type one word, a couple of keywords. You have only a limited number of characters. You can submit it and then re-enter. Everything will flow on the screen. And we would like to see now, in your view, how the guidelines can support the engagement of new SME. Thank you. All right, it's great to see the answer flowing here. And we can have two different tracks. In the one hand, as proof of sharing best technology, best practice, through case studies, showing that it's working. We can see successful case again, proof of concept, which is true. And we can also see, on the other hand, like not only on the technical part, but the other barrier that the project is trying to address is the compliance of the law and the market advantage. So through that, yes, first, the guidelines are a really helpful tool in both of the outputs that this project is working on, both on the technical barrier and legislation, also through the new comment that Wojciech will address as it was raised. That's great to see that flying. Q&A, yes, as well. And it's true, case studies, proof of concept, we are expecting a lot out of these case studies. I'm really looking forward to be able to read them. By the way, colleagues, if you do have, I know Branko is trying to ask you a lot, but I'm just sharing this message again. If you do have great picture for the graphic designer about the reformulation and the work in the SMEs, please share it with him, because he really look for graphical and visual materials. I spoke on your behalf, Branko, but I've heard you speaking this message a lot, so I hope it's okay.
Thanks.
And yeah, no, somebody else would like to comment and jump on this question? Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, hi. I think this is all very good. And I was thinking also, the guidelines themselves are very technical and long, as they need to be, because they're covering the whole process. It's meant to be guidelines. So, and the case studies will be in the guidelines. And I have encouraged before, and I guess I'd like to say it again, part of what I think the guidelines offer here, like we're seeing, how to comply with laws, encouragement, there might be a need, or it might be helpful to have a shorter version that can hone in on, specifically maybe a version that hones in on the lessons learned from the case studies and why this is important, in just a shorter version of some sort. would be helpful in doing some of the things that we're suggesting here about how it can support new engagement, but also maybe new engagement of SMEs in light of new laws. So it could even be used by NGOs or governments or others to encourage compliance assistance, or even to convince the industry stakeholders in their country that they could support a law because it's indeed doable. So another thought for consideration. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for that. It's true, at the beginning of the project, when the guideline was drafted, we have already drafted this short summary that was really of an overview on what was this document about, to also address to less technical audience, but what you suggest could be a good point to provide them with the result in a way. So it's also well noted. Does somebody else have another thought or point they would like to add on that topic? Okay, so I'll suggest that we move to the third question, still looking at the different tool, and this one is a ranking question. So please rank the following tools in your favorite order. So which tool might be the most helpful to disseminate the guidelines? In your view, what would be the best way to share this key document? Thank you. Okay, please feel free to keep on posting answer in case, but thank you for that already. So of course, as we said in the first question, where industry associations were key to disseminate the guideline. Not surprisingly, we can see that face-to-face meeting and webinar with the industry are the most helpful tool for now to disseminate the guideline. Linked also with multi-stakeholder meeting, including government, NGOs, and academia. So the dissemination of copy arrived first, which was also quite not surprising. I don't know in this group if some of the stakeholders have already started to disseminate it during some events. I know, for instance, again in Jordan, they already have shared some hard copy of the draft technical guidelines. That was actually an interesting way to reach it, to put that in the hand of additional SMEs. And otherwise, of course, other doesn't seem to be quite high, but I would also be curious just to see what were your thoughts behind that. So I don't know if someone want to start on that or would like to comment this result, but the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, Nicolina, I think I did I did choose that. I think someone else might have, but for me, other was putting it on like the psychoknowledge website, maybe linking to it from other websites where it makes sense. So that's what I meant by that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, the knowledge management is a good tool. Yes, Ken, go ahead.
Hi. I didn't put this in other because I just thought of it, but again, not being familiar with the industry, but there are many in many industries there are big trade shows that happen where suppliers and different companies along the supply chain and customers get together and um, talk about what their products are, try to sell things. So is this something that occurs in your countries? And if so, are these the kind of events that small enterprises might participate in? Because if so, this seems like it could be a great way to get the word out, since it's, the distilled exact audience you want to reach.
This is a good point. Thank you for that. I remember at the beginning of the project, Maike from the regional office in Europe reached out to us because she was invited to speak in an industry association event in Ukraine. And then she shared the draft guidelines, but we never heard anything concrete. It's true Ukraine is working with the law, but we don't work directly with them with the SMEs, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. Vera, I can see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Nicolene. Just because I've seen now that it's used a lot, and I have seen it in other projects on other topics, to usually have a one-pager summarizing some key elements and key findings of the document or the report, and then you have a link to where the report can be found. So usually that one pager is some kind of infographic style. And the good thing is that then you can even have sometimes this kind of infographic or one pagers even in stores where where formulators or others come and they are offered the pager with the link to the guidance.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point as well. You're already touching upon the next question, so this is well noted. Thanks. Angela, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think this actually belongs in the first question. I should have brought it up then, and maybe it'll come in the later one. So I'll just bring it up while I'm thinking about it. The other idea for dissemination, I think, and it came up in the workshop yesterday, was just the work of the NCPCs and it being provided as a service to help companies. So maybe we'll talk about that later, but I wanted to mention it as an idea for discussion here too, if it makes sense. Thanks.
Thanks. Branko, I see your hand is up. Oh. Okay, apologize. That was really looked like Branko just left the meeting. Are you still connected? Can you still hear me? Since he was the host. Okay, I can still hear you, Angela. That's good.
Yeah, we'll proceed, I guess, and see if he can join us.
Exactly, and see if since he was the one who will set up the link, that we're not being kicked off the room.
Hopefully the recording has continued as well.
Yeah. Okay, great. So
go ahead.
While waiting for Branko to come back, and you already know, I'll suggest that we move to the next question, which is already what Vera was suggesting on the which resource tools and other assistance would you need to be sure that the guideline gets into the hand of the right people. So again, this is Oh, hi, Branko. I can see your hand is up.
No, it's a legacy hand. I was disconnected for.
Okay, perfect. Again, already a lot of great idea. I can see first access to the SciChem knowledge management. The guidelines are already there, the draft. They're at the top of the lead paint page, and we'll be happy to upload them as soon as possible when the final one are being ready. So don't worry, we're already on it. I'm just a little bit curious about the social media cards that has been put. Do you mean if the person would say that meant that by social media post or something further with like visual? I don't know if someone might want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, that was me. I just mean these nice little graphics that contain some little bit of information, a little bit of a teaser, a nice image, and can be used when you post on Facebook or Twitter or whatever,
Okay.
network you want to post on. And in fact, there's even a whole social media kit that's sometimes shared with these sort of reports that includes some sample posts and tweets and language and cards too that can just make it easier for people to share.
Okay, it's a good idea. Thanks, Ken. Yeah, of course, workshop is the one who come up first. I see Angela, you ended up. You might want to comment that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think workshops is first because it's one word. It's not necessarily, because I tried to also support someone else's word and it just went in twice. So I think that's just because it's one word. Doesn't mean it's the most important. But I do want to say that, again, the technical guidelines are very technical. They are made for someone who is somewhat familiar with what they would need to do to reformulate. That's their purpose. So I think to get it into the hands of the people who need them would be to the paint reformulators themselves. But I think we're all acknowledging that the fact that reformulation is possible is an important conclusion. And I liked the idea of a leaflet or a brochure, my idea was a brochure with a little more information, but a one-pager, because the regular consumer or government official or other person who might be interested in knowing that reformulation is possible and that some of the barriers and lessons learned would not get that out of the technical guidelines as they're written now, because they're written to be just that, technical guidelines. So I think we have to look at the form and the format relative to the dissemination tactic. So, for example, I put down technical webinars or brochure with case studies, and those are two different things. A technical webinar could be sponsored by an association where their members come to learn whatever it is they learn, what the association shares, and this one could be about reformulation. But the brochure could be targeted at government policymakers to assure them that the standard they're developing is indeed going to be compliable with, or it could be given to NGOs that are talking to SMEs to help them, do the right thing. So the dissemination has to match the actual document that you're disseminating, in my view.
Thank you, Angela. No, indeed, this is a good point. And for us, we might need to come up with few additional way to present this document to get it to the right audience. I just wanted to ask maybe our NCPC colleague, because I just see that somebody put NCPC on the screen. It's now in yellow on the right corner. I don't know if someone wants to elaborate on that. Just to know a little bit more which tool the NCPC could need, or what was behind that. No. Okay. And otherwise, I see Branko, you have your hands up.
No.
Oh.
No. It's
okay.
Angela's hand.
Yeah, I actually have I just added one because I think NCPC is a very important piece. It's not necessarily a tool, but it could be a resource. I put RSCP network because if NCPCs are interested in becoming knowledgeable about this sector, in the work that they do with facilities, it could be a way for them to, especially in countries that are going to be passing laws, it could be a way for them to provide a service. And so these guidelines could be the central piece that they could use to work with facilities that would like assistance.
Okay. Thank you for this explanation, Angela. And now, if it's okay with everybody, and also being mindful of the time, which is turning, I suggest that we just jump on the last question, which is to look at which actual action would we do, how could we do to disseminate the guideline. And this time, instead of having a word cloud like we just had before, we would have an open-ended question, so it would just be boxes. So I just changed that compared to yesterday to be sure that we would have enough space to add what we want without being restricted with a size. Thank you. Okay, please feel free to keep on posting some answer. And we already got some great ideas again on concrete action. And as we discussed, we can see that the regional event and the NCPC network to be involved is key. Also the industry video, also having industry webinar or fair event, talking about industry. It's a good idea to potentially send the final guideline to the participant of the Lead Paint Alliance industry webinar. Maybe why not to do that with a community of practice as well, and so on. I like the short training video for reformulators. It sounds quite like reformulators superhero name, at least for non-native English. That's a good idea. We already saw the really good video from Ecuador this afternoon, so that could be something we also as a testimony that we can keep on thinking about. So thank you for that. I don't know. No, let's see if somebody would like to comment or jump on that and explain something else.
Yeah, Nicolene.
Go ahead, Branko.
I repeat, since the start of the project and since I got involved in lead paint issue, legislation is everything. You can disseminate the final guidelines. I mean, you can push, but if there is no pull from the clients, then all of these brilliant ideas would not be interesting. I mean, if companies need to reformulate, it will be a good news for them to have already very concise. I hear that we are speaking about technical guidelines. I mean, they are comprehensive, but believe me, when you read all the textbooks about paint industry, it's thousands of pages. So it is really very, very short text, if I may, in which you have, which is a platform for everybody. So the bottom line is push for legislation, then enforce this legislation, and we don't need to, then there will be a huge demand from industry to get these kind of documents, and I'm really happy that this project will deliver it and it will be available for everybody to use it. Over.
Thank you so much for your comment, Branko. It's true, and we've seen that today and yesterday, the link between having the legislation being passed or in the pipeline and the demand at the SME level for like these guidelines and for how to do such an exercise. And that could also be a point that could be included if we do a lesson learned type of part of the guideline, like was Angela just suggested. So it's definitely a good point. Thanks. I don't know if someone else would like to speak now on this question overall on the reformulation, on the dissemination of the guidelines. Yeah, go ahead, Angela.
I think what Branko said is critical because about the interest in these guidelines and the motivation to do this will definitely be driven, as we heard from Ecuador and Peru, by laws, because it isn't easy to do. It's possible to do. It takes a little bit more effort, and in some cases costs a little bit more. So a law is an important driver. And so in our outreach, in order for us to be effective, I think we'll need to think about how to, and I put this in some of my suggestions, how to focus or, target the outreach. I mean, we can do blanket outreach and that's fine, but if we want to really get people using this, we might have to be a little more targeted and partner with governments that are already starting to create laws, or governments, or even using it to convince governments that aren't quite sure yet to create laws to say, oh, look, we have these guidelines. If you do this, we have some information you can provide to industry. So there's various different reasons for the outreach. It's not as simple as just getting the guidelines out there.
Of course. No, you're right. And as we heard today, now we can actually, through the guideline in this pilot tested, we can actually come to government or industry and say reformulation without lab capacity is entirely possible. And look at that. So it's it's going to be a really great document. I cannot wait to see it. Thanks. All right. So if it's okay with you, Branko, we can terminate this session. And I let you go on the floor. And thank you so much for your participation in this Menti and for all the wealth of ID and the discussion. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Nicolene. Thank you, everybody, for really great discussion. And I really hope that this recording will be available since I was disconnected. But it was a great webinar. And if you don't mind, maybe we can turn on our cameras to, if it's okay with you. Yeah, so yeah, I see more and more people. Yeah, we are almost on time. We have 5 minutes left of the planned meeting. If we had Colombia, maybe it would be a little bit longer, but I'm really happy after those 2 days of the validation workshop. And I just, before giving the final word to Ken, just to tell you that we are now consolidating all the feedback from all of you that we received from the partners. We are, Vojka is drafting the final draft, and we are working with the graphical designer. Nicolene already said, but I'm going to repeat, we need a lot of photographs, good material, video materials with people there in concrete cases. It will make these guidelines much nicer. And now the last point in our agenda, it is formal, but I would like to ask you, we can now consider that the guidelines are validated, that all the partners found no fatal flaws in it, and we can, of course, always improve it. But I just want to hear if somebody has something to say that we cannot use them, or they are not they are not appropriate in this form, or we can all agree that this can be shared as a product of our project. So if somebody wants to say something, please do it now. Or if you agree, if you say that we can consider the guidelines validated, you can also say that. Over. Or you can type. Okay, so no objections. Ken is saying thumbs up. Very good. So I would, yes, Angela?
Yes, I just want to say I think it's a great product of this project, and I think the SME work was very important. But I do want to emphasize, I think some sort of shorter version at some point, if we can do it, would be nice as well, because for the different purposes. So thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I count on support from our PsyChem knowledge people who are specialists in this kind of products, but we are here to support it. I think we have enough material to make this infographic or one-pager. Thank you. So Ken, please, floor is yours to have a final word.
Thanks, Branko. We're so considerate of you to give me the final word. Well, I do note the desire for a summary product or a shorter version, a summary of some kind. So that's definitely noted, and we can definitely look into the resources in the PsyChem knowledge program and with this project team to see what we can do. But on a broader note, I think this has been, just like yesterday, a really interesting and I think fruitful meeting. And again, I learned a lot, especially about the work in Ecuador and Peru. And also enjoyed the discussion a lot, and the ideas around disseminating and having the guidance reach the best, most relevant audience for maximum impact. So I think between yesterday and today we got a lot of good ideas. And I think in terms of Colombia, we can, like Branko said, there was already a presentation presented. I think we should certainly ask if they're prepared to share the presentation with everyone as well, just so we can also have that for the website and for the records and for our information. But again, I think this is a great activity. I think the guidelines, now validated guidelines, are going to prove extremely valuable, and I want to thank Branko and Vojka again, especially for your leadership on this activity, and all of the team in the different countries, and the advisors, the expertise from US EPA, and Nicolene, thanks to you for the Menti session too, which was great. So that's it. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for the presentation. Thanks for everything.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.